Sir Keir Starmer is in the midst of another row over donations and integrity. It's been revealed that the Reverend Starmer's path to becoming Labour leader and now Prime Minister was heavily assisted by Labour Together. The think tank spent hundreds of thousands of pounds on polling and research, all aimed at boosting Starmer's leadership perspectives. But now it seems some of these funds may not have been properly declared. £700,000 of donations were not properly registered by Labour Together from 2017 to 2020, much of it during Keir Starmer's Labour leadership campaign for 2020. The funding was only made public months after Keir Starmer had secured the leadership. And today it's been revealed that a leaked 2021 email shows that the Labour Party's lawyer, Gerald Shamash, suggested Mr McSweeney could simply call the omission an administrative error. Morgan McSweeney, the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, was the director of Labour Together and also ran Keir Starmer's leadership campaign. More than £100,000 in donation came in whilst he was running the campaign. And Steve Reid and Shabana Mahmood, both now senior ministers, openly acknowledge that Labour Together played a key role in helping Starmer to win. Work and Pension Secretary Pat McFadden spoke to GB News about this earlier today.
I'm not surprised that political opponents are trying to attack Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff at Number 10. He's very effective. He was a big part of Labour's election victory last year. So I'm not surprised they're attacking him, but the Electoral Commission's job is to police all these things, and they said they looked into it some years ago.
However, parliamentary rules clearly require MPs to declare any support in kind over £1,500. Keir Starmer's register of interest contains no record of this support. The story goes further when we look at the £700,000 in donation that Labour Together reportedly failed to disclose. The Electoral Commission advised the donations needed to be declared. Mr Shamash, in the leaked email, admitted there was no easy way to explain this apparent dereliction of duty. Of course, Labour would deny any wrongdoing. A Labour source told the media neither Keir nor his leadership campaign accepted monetary or in-kind donations from Labour Together during the leadership election. And a Downing Street source said everything was declared properly in relation to the leadership election. Labour Together was fined £14,250 for more than 20 breaches of electoral law, and it was only after Mr McSweeney left that his successor reported the missing donations to the Electoral Commission. Under the Political Parties, Elections and Referendums Act, MPs are required to check that donations and loans over £500 come from permissible sources and to register donations over £1,500 within 30 days. This includes financial support, loans, gifts of property and support in kind. The MP's Code of Conduct, Section 1, Category 2B, defines donations liable for declaration as any other support received by a member. This includes support received indirectly, for example, via a political club. The think tank failed to declare significant financial and in-kind support, waited months to disclose donations, and sought to downplay the issue as an administrative error. This is not a minor oversight. Hundreds of thousands of pounds are at stake. It strikes at the heart of transparency, integrity, and public trust in the political process. Today, I can reveal that a complaint has been submitted to the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards by a member of the public against Keir Starmer for failing to declare the support he got from Labour Together. It's now up to him to take action on Mr McSweeney's failure to adhere to parliamentary rules on donations and declarations. For a Prime Minister and his team, proving their integrity and adherence to these rules isn't optional, it's mandatory. Think what Starmer said about Boris, and failing to do so raises serious doubts about the judgment and accountability of those at the top of government.
Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living, and maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is TallyMoney?
Well, Bev, with TallyMoney, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade. And in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks' savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at TallyMoney. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access, away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind the more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
As always, as ever, let me know your views. mailmog@gbnews.com. And it must be noted that we approached number 10 for a response from Mr. McSweeney, but number 10 refused to comment. I'm now joined by a man with direct experience of dealing with the Electoral Commission, Councillor Darren Grimes. Darren, I'm very grateful you've joined me, because it seems to me that the lefty Electoral Commission has been stunningly wet in this. When it was vote leave, you were absolutely dragged through a process that went on for years when you were ultimately completely exonerated.
That's absolutely right, Jacob. I thank you for shining a light on this two-tier hypocrisy, as you do almost every night. You know, the fact of the matter is that this is a two-tier government, a two-tier administration. What I remember quite vividly, I was in my early 20s. You don't forget your early 20s. They're meant to be some of the best years of your life. Well, actually, mine were made utter hell. You know, I was investigated 3 times by the quango known as the Electoral Commission. And former members of the Labour Party and current members of the administration and government right now, they actually claimed that I ought to have been jailed. You know, I was ultimately fined £20,000, which, Jacob, as you've just mentioned, is more than the £14,000 for 20 breaches. And there weren't 3 investigations. There wasn't a police investigation. The CPS weren't involved. There hasn't been a court case involved. And yet this led to a man being directly placed in number 10 Downing Street, the seat of power within the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Now, does that not tell you that from everyone from Labour Party members, the members of this current government, to the Labour-friendly members of His Majesty's King's Council and all the rest of it, they're effectively a cartel, a cabal that says that if you have the right kind of politics, well, it's A-OK, Jacob. And that's the problem I have here.
But you get away scot-free, and that the donations were £700,000, were a much bigger sum of money than was involved in your case, that you were fined £20,000, which was then rescinded by the court. You were harassed by the police and the Crown Prosecution Service. None of this has happened. The Electoral Commission seems to have brushed it under the carpet, said nothing to see here, because it's their lefty friends.
That's exactly right. You know, over £100,000 of that coming whilst he was running Starmer's leadership campaign as well. And the Electoral Commission apparently gave a warning back in 2017. Well, Jacob, I never had any of that. You know, I was a student at the time, don't forget, of the Brexit referendum. I was doing this on my own. Well, they've had the whole apparatus of the Labour Party so-called moderates. I would argue with that definition, Jacob, as you well know. But actually, they had that warning. They had the legal advice. They had the advice to declare sums over £7,500, but actually they declared precious few donations. And the fact of the matter is, had this been a member of Nigel Farage's closest allies getting Nigel into number 10, you can bet your bottom dollar that these very same people would be calling for Nigel's head.
Well, you're absolutely right about that. And if you look at what Starmer said about Boris and about how the people who make the laws can't be above the laws, the hypocrisy of this is extraordinary. And it does come back to Starmer himself, because members of Parliament have to report support that they are given directly or indirectly. And as far as one can tell, and it's been admitted by Labour figures, Labour together existed to get Keir Starmer to be leader of the Labour Party and get rid of Jeremy Corbyn.
Exactly. The polling, the research, the staff time, all of these things all add up to that apparatus, that machinery behind Sir Keir Starmer, which propels him into number 10 in a loveless landslide that was that election of last year. And ultimately, all of these things add up. They have an effect. These are the things that they argued about our campaign for Brexit. But actually, all of the EU side, which had, of course, everything from Soros cash to the big vested interests as far as the Remain campaign's concerned, the Prime Minister of the time, let's not forget as well. None of those things had the same level of scrutiny applied to them. And that, I think, goes to the very heart of the issue here. Where is the scrutiny? Where are the members of the King's Council calling for actually there to be a thorough investigation into what actually went down? If they care about the sanctity of the ballot box, where are they now, Jacob? That's what I ask.
And this is a crucial test for the Electoral Commission to try and redeem itself, because the Conservatives have put in a complaint, and we'll now see whether they're willing to investigate Labour and senior figures in the government in the way they investigated you.
Well, Jacob, you are far too important to hold your breath. I shall not ask you to hold your breath, because actually I think if you did, you'd be in a very dangerous territory. Ultimately, right, the same people that were leading the investigation into me, the 3 investigations into me, of which there was a court case and I was cleared by the police and the court, that actually they are now in positions of power and influence within the Electoral Commission. The entire Quango state is stacked against those with right of centre opinions. And I'm afraid that view of mine has not changed in the 10 years I've been active in politics.